And why don't we start with you, Anon? Why don't we start by talking about how fucking useless you are? Why don't we talk about how your little tiny human penis gets hard every time one of us is nice to you? Well, guess what, Anon? We're not interested. And I think that deep down you know that. You know that none of us would ever be interested in the town creep. And before you start making excuses for yourself, no. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're a different species. You could be the most handsome stallion in Equestria, but if you still walked around breathing through your mouth staring at our vaginas all day like you do now, we'd be just as repulsed as we are right now. Except maybe Rarity, but we can talk about that later, can't we?
Rarity nervously gulps as Twilight glares at her.
I'm sure none of this is news to you, Anon. But the problem is you're so desperate that you manage to delude yourself about it. Whenever one of us says anything nice to you, or Celestia forbid, touches you, you get it into your head that maybe we did it because we're interested in you. You think that maybe something magically changed that suddenly made you attractive. And you spend the rest of the day fantasizing, holding on to this little shred of hope that you synthesized, spinning stories in your mind about how great you treat us. Like an immature little boy. And then you play with your pathetic little penis, go to bed, and do it all over again the next day. What do you think, Anon? Sound pretty spot on. Shut up. I'm not done. Because there's something else you need to know. Your sad little life. It's not a secret. Everyone talks about it. We talk about how you're never going to find love. We talk about how fucking ugly your hairless skin is. We talk about that, even though you know you have nothing to offer, you absolutely never make any attempts to improve yourself. And that's really the biggest problem, isn't it, Anon? That even though you know that you're an irredeemable loser, you're never going to change. You're just going to keep blaming the world for your shitty life. Instead of taking control of your own fate, you're just going to continue to complain that the universe didn't just hand you happiness for free. Never mind that I'm giving you a free place to live and free food to eat, you want more. So next time you're moping around wondering why no pony wants anything to do with you, remember this conversation. And then, maybe, if the stars align, you'll actually blame yourself. You won't blame any pony else, you won't blame fate, you'll blame yourself. And then, just maybe, you'll grow the fuck up and start acting like a man. But considering your track record, Anon, I'm not holding my breath.
You're frozen. Twilight grinned at your defeat. The tense silence was at last broken by a nervous giggle from Pinky. Wrong move.
Oh, what a surprise! Pinkie Pie is trying to make a bad situation go away by laughing. Let's find out if it worked, shall we?
Twilight menacingly strolls over to Pinky, not breaking eye contact.
Well, you're still fat. And you're still totally dead inside. So it looks like laughing didn't help all that, did it? As much as you wish it would. Oh, and before you ask, no overeating won't help either.
Pinky's ears flop down.
Living inside a shell sounds great, doesn't it, Pinky? If you smile and laugh at everything, then it all becomes a joke. Nothing can get inside. None of the suffering and death in the world. None of the hate and aggression. None of the injustice. None of it seems real if you laugh at it, does it, Pinky? Well, there's two problems with living like that. The first problem, the obvious problem, is that those things are real. But I know you know that. The second problem, Pinky, is that if you don't let anything get in, nothing can get out either. Your psyche becomes an isolated wasteland, and the monsters in your head just become stronger, because you won't let anything in to fight them. Get it? Let me put in a way you might actually understand. Your pantry is full of pastries and candy, right? Of course it is. Now let's say I nailed it shut, and we didn't open it for 10 years. What do you think would happen? Everything inside would rot. If there was ever anything worthwhile in that pantry, it would be left to just idly fester there in the dark. Then it starts to mold. The bugs will start to get to it. Everything will be destroyed from the inside out. But all the while, the door to the pantry looks just as inviting as ever. And, inevitably, somebody will come along and open that pantry, regardless of how difficult it is, expecting delicious treats. And then they'll see everything. They'll see the awful secrets that pantry has been holding for all these years. The decay. The disease. The disaster. And no matter how much they try to clean it out, it's no use. That pantry will always be tainted. You'll never be able to rid that place of traces of the disrepair that you let happen. It's ruined. Forever.
Pinky's face had become emotionless. She stares off into the depths of the forest as Twilight watches her with pride.
But it gets harder every day, doesn't it, Pinky? The demons are getting bigger and stronger, and the walls of your mind are getting thinner and weaker. Which means you have to work harder to keep everything inside. You have to make jokes more often, and laugh more loudly. Don't think we haven't noticed, Pinky. You've been acting out more and more over the past couple of years, because you have to scream louder than your demons. And I understand that. You wouldn't want your friends to see inside your head, would you? So you go ahead and keep making more and more obnoxious jokes. But know that it won't last forever, Pinky. Because soon, we're going to get sick of it, and it'll chase us all away. And when you have no one left to tell jokes to, your defense is gone. And your demons will have no one to attack but you. And they'll win. I promise you that, they will win.
Pinky remains emotionless while her breathing becomes heavier. Twilight grins and begins pacing in front of the rest of the group.
And while we're on the topic of ponies hiding behind masks,
she stops in front of Rainbow Dash.
Just how much do you hate yourself, Rainbow Dash?
Dash grimaces.
I don't.
You're lying.
Dash is clearly shaken, but tries to remain looking confident. Twilight locks eyes with her.
What do you think you'd do, Rainbow Dash, if no one complimented you for an entire week? Do you think you'd survive, Dash? 7 days?
Dash began to try to answer, but nothing came out of her mouth. She clenched her jaw, trying to fight back emotion. Twilight snickered.
What would you be forced to think about, Dash? Your faults? Your insecurities? All the ways in which you might not be good enough?
Dash looked towards the ground angrily.
Stop.
No! Day 1! You go show off in front of your friends like you always do. When no one compliments you, you turn to your backup plan. Scootaloo! That's all she is to you anyway, right, Dash? An easy way to get compliments. But you have no luck with her either. Who knows, maybe she's gotten tired of you doing the same old shit all the time. You try to shrug it off and sleep. Day 2. You start forcing ponies to pay attention to you. You fly in front of Mayor making a speech or crash a party. But no one wants to watch you, do they? You're boring. They don't care about you. So you go work out all night to distract yourself and go to sleep. Day 3. You start making excuses for yourself. Maybe ponies are just too intimidated by you to compliment you. Maybe they're complimenting you, but you just haven't heard them. So you feed off of your pathetic denial for the day and spend the night having nightmares. Day 4. You're desperate and tormented. You confront every pony you see, interrupting everything they're doing to get them to pay attention to you. You show off and try to lead them into praising you. But naturally, everyone gets sick of your childish attempts at getting affirmation. The harder you try, the less attention you get.
Dash's eyes are tightly closed as tears sneak between her eyelids.
Stop.
No! Day 5. You spend the morning curled up on a cloud feeling sorry for yourself. In a last desperate attempt, you tell everyone you can find that you're going to do a sonic rainboom. After you finally find a few ponies to watch, you fail. You fail because you weren't good enough. You watch your audience laugh at you as they walk away.
Please stop.
Day 6. You remember all the times you disappointed your parents. You remember all the things your classmates said about you. 'Cause this isn't the first time you failed, is it, Rainbow Crash? You don't sleep that night.
Twilight.
Day 7. You try to hurt yourself again.
Rainbow Dash's entire body shakes as you all listen to the eerie sounds of the Everfree. It's interrupted by Twilight mercilessly pacing towards her next victim.
Why don't we continue with our theme of insecurity?
Rarity quickly jerks her head to look at Twilight, knowing she's next.
There is nothing you can say that could hurt me, Twilight. You're wrong! You just think I'm going to call you a slut. And you are a slut, but that's not what I hate about you. Then what, pray tell, do you hate about me, love? I hate how fucking fake you are. You are just so ashamed of the mayor who lives underneath all that makeup, aren't you? Not at all, dear. Okay, then go wash off the makeup. Let's see who you really are.
Without waiting for a response, Twilight walks to Zecora's door and knocks. Zecora hesitantly answers.
Sorry for bothering you, Zecora. Can Rarity use your bathroom? It's an emergency.
Zecora nods and gestures for Rarity to enter. Rarity gives Twilight a threatening glare before slowly entering Zecora's house. As the door closes, all that can be heard is whimpering coming from Fluttershy.
What's the matter, loser? Having flashbacks?
A Fluttershy makes no attempt to stifle her tears.
Fluttershy, you've been getting made fun of by every pony for your entire life. Have you ever considered that just maybe the problem is you, not every pony else?
As Fluttershy turns her head away from Twilight and sobs, Rainbow Dash steps towards them.
Back off, Twilight! Calm down, Rainbow Dash! I don't have much to say to poor Fluttershy.
Twilight uses her front hoof to turn Fluttershy's head towards her and locks eyes with her.
She already knows she's a weak, socially retarded outcast who has been pitied by everyone she's ever met. And nothing I can say will ever change that.
Twilight maintained eye contact until Fluttershy closed her eyes and helplessly whimpered. Everyone's eyes turned to Zecora's door as Rarity emerges. She didn't make eye contact with any of you. The only differences in her makeup are the streams of eyeliner running down her face from her tears. She gently sits down beside Fluttershy, defeated. Applejack steps forward.
Well, Twilight, I'm waiting.
Twilight smiles.
Oh, Applejack, the golden mare! You've got it all figured out, don't you?
Applejack squints.
You'd be making your parents so proud. Little Miss Responsible.
Everyone recoiled at Twilight's cheap shot. Holy shit.
Then again, what can go wrong? In a life without risks, there's not a whole lot at stake, is there? It's not that hard to wake up and do the same thing every day, is it?
You couldn't do what I do, Twilight. None of you could.
And that's the only thing that keeps you going, isn't it, Applejack? It's just this bloated sense of pride that gets you out of bed in the morning. Now, I'm not saying you've had it easy. I'm really not. All I'm saying is it really all that hard to kick trees all day? Do you really think that makes you strong? Do you really think that if your mother could see you right now, that she'd be proud of you?
Applejack maintains her composure.
Yes, I do.
I don't. You know what I think, Applejack? I think that when your parents died, you died with them. When your parents died, you committed your entire life to that farm, because that's what you think they'd want. But what's happened to you? You've become a machine. You've become a pony who has completely lost her sense of wonder for the world, and you've become content with reliving the same chapter of your life over and over. And that's not living. That's existing. There's a difference. You're wasting the one life you get on a bunch of trees. And if I was your mother, it would break my heart to see what a soulless robot you've become.
The silence that followed that sentence was indescribable. Everyone was left to reflect on what they'd just been through. Pinkie sat in fear, imagining the demons that lived within her mind. Rainbow Dash's thoughts were flooded by memories of self-loathing as she lies shaking on the ground. Rarity sat in tears, ashamed of both the mask of makeup she wore as well as the mare beneath it. A Fluttershy looked on, desperate for the courage to rescue both herself and her friends. Applejack looked to the stars, questioning every choice she's made that brought her to where she is now. And Twilight, left watching it all, watching the misery she brought to all of her best friends. In seconds, Twilight becomes just as agonized as the rest of you. She becomes filled with regret and disgust at the monster she'd just become. The terrible silence lasts for probably about 20 minutes as the sun begins to set above the forest. No one has said a word. No one has even moved. The tears have for the most part passed, and eyes begin to wander. Twilight shyly looks at her friends in guilt. The 6 of them, for perhaps the first time, are seeing one another in an entirely decomposed and vulnerable state. Before long, their sadness turns to empathy. The grief fades from their faces, and all that's left is the silent appreciation that they're still surrounded by their best friends. Perhaps due to an oversaturation of emotion, Pinkie can't help but begin to softly giggle. As with all groups of friends, the laughter grows contagious as the 7 of you revel in a bout of amusement that seems very out of place. As painful as it was, a very heavy weight has seemingly been lifted from all of your shoulders through all this. Through teary-eyed laughter, Twilight finally spoke up.
I'm so sorry, girls.
This triggered the release of even more laughter as everyone joined into a group embrace. As the hug continued, Dash was the first to sarcastically speak up.
We really are a bunch of faggots, aren't we?
All of you instinctively laugh. The 7 of you eventually make your way back to Ponyville. You all spent the night at Rarity's place. Not a lot of talking happened, but the surprising part was that there was absolutely no animosity. It was understood that everyone was sorry for what happened, and the whole group seemed to put the whole situation behind them. The next day, everyone worked on fixing up Twilight's house. It wasn't perfect, but it would do. Everything pretty much returned to normal. The only thing that changed was that everyone was a whole lot more comfortable using the words faggot and cunt jokingly. If anything, this whole situation improved the social dynamics around town. And eventually, word of the amends got back to Celestia. Celestia ended up writing a letter of apology and accepting Twilight as her student once again. Twilight never got to read it though, because Spike actually died in that house fire.